Hey everybody, this is Tom from VermiBag. Mulching is so important to your garden. And it's another one of those things, like I said, if you haven't done a raised bed garden, you oughta. But if you're not mulching in your garden, you're missing out on a lot of benefits. One, it'll really cut down on the amount of water that you have to do, and you reduce the risk of killing your plants because you forget to water them one day, because the plants will probably survive a day or so, even in hot weather, because of that mulch level over the top. It'll lock that moisture in there. And two, it'll really help you on the weeding side, because the weeds aren't going to want to come up through this stuff. There are a lot of different types of mulch. If you have straw or hay or some type of organic material that's decomposing, by all means go ahead and use that. But again, I don't have that stuff readily available. And the one thing you see on all my videos, the one thing I have is a lot of paper. And I can get as much paper as I want. So that's exactly what I use for my mulching. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take this raised garden bed that I have here, and I'm going to go ahead and mulch half of it. And that way we can come back tomorrow or the next day and I can show you exactly the benefits. We'll look at the half that's not mulched, and we'll look at the half that's mulched. And we'll show you the difference in the moisture content in that soil. And what I'm going to be using is finely shredded paper that I get at work. You can use regular shredded paper to work just fine. This micro shred, I think it does work probably a little bit better because it tends to mat together a little bit better. Now, if you're worried about this blowing all over your yard, don't worry about that, because I have a solution for that too. First, you want to wet the paper down, and what it'll do is it'll create this intertwined, like a locking mat. And that alone will pretty much keep a lot of the paper from blowing away unless it got really windy. But to really lock it down and to make it look better, because a lot of people don't want to have white beds, is I add a final coat, a really thin coat of just regular mulch over the top of it. And then when you're looking at it, it looks just like an ordinary raised garden bed or a garden bed with mulch over the top of it. But if you go underneath that thin layer of mulch, you're going to find all this pure white paper. So let's get started. I'm going to set up the camera. I'm going to go ahead and do half of this bed first, layer it down with a nice thick layer, probably a ½ inch of this micro shredded paper. And then just on one little corner, I'm going to add a little bit of mulch on top of it just to show you what it's going to look like when we add the mulch, that it looks like a normal garden again. And then tomorrow, I'll come back again, we'll take a look at this bed and see how the moisture content is on either side. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a fine layer of regular mulch over the top of the white paper for it looks better. Let's go over here and add some paper mulch to this bed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add some universal soil, they call it. It's actually more of a mulch that I bought from the store. You can take a look at it here. It's really definitely not completely composted, big chunks of, I don't know, shredded up wood or something. It's more of a compost than it is a soil, but they call it a universal soil. Anyway, I'm going to use this to mulch the top of this to make it look natural again. And then I'm going to have this hidden, basically, paper layer underneath that's really going to keep the moisture into this bed really well. And you don't have to put very much of this mulch on. I'm just going to add enough just to give me some color, really. I just want it to look like earth. So I'm going to do the same thing on these big plants. I don't want this stuff all over them, so I grab a hold of them and try and cup them the best I can and get all the leaves up. Then just take a little bit of this soil and add just a little bit on top. Again, you can put this really thin, or as thick as you want, I suppose, depending depending on what you want it to look like. Now I'm going to give that another quick little spray and just get some of that debris off the leaves. So this is that little corner of the bed that has the additional mulch on top of the shredded paper. And you can see it looks just like a normal raised bed now. And as you pull away and you kind of look at the rest of it, it's kind of like covered with snow. So I'll come back in, we'll finish this video tomorrow or the next day after 1 or 2 days of really hot weather. And we'll take a look underneath this and see what the soil's like on this side versus the section over there that we haven't mulched at all. And by that time too, I'm also going to add this little additional mulch over this whole thing, just to aesthetics, make it look nice. So it's been 2 days since I added this mulch to this raised bed garden. And right off the bat now, you can see the pepper right here. It looks really good. I mean, all the lower leaves are sticking outward. It's not wilting at all. The next one over, basically the same way. The next one, again, real healthy. The leaves are really strong. On the other end, you look at these peppers that don't have any mulch. You can definitely tell that they're wilting a little bit. The leaves are kind of drooping down on all of these. They just aren't getting enough moisture, and things are drying out on them. Now, I did water the whole area just a little bit yesterday because it's been 90 degrees for the last 2 days. So, but I added it evenly across, the whole bed. So let's take a look real close in here on this end where we have the shredded paper down for mulch, and then I have a thin layer of a universal soil, just a really cheap universal soil. So it's really just kind of like ground up bark. When I come here, the very surface here is, almost crusty. This universal soil has just dried out completely and is really, really, but it's acting like a skin almost. And as soon as I break through that little bit of a layer, the shredded paper that's underneath, this is actually moist. Amazingly, this is still moist. Now if I dig down and get below that, the soil is real moist. You can see how dark, a color it is. So, having this universal soil, again, you can just buy a really cheap soil and just put a thin layer over the top of your shredded paper. Now let's look at the other side where I don't have any mulch at all. The first thing you'll notice again is, there's weeds coming up here. I have these little weeds that I'm going to have to turn around and pull up all the time. The top of the soil here is just really dry and it's hot. That's the big deal. This is actually almost hot to the touch. It's, I bet you 90 degrees pretty easily. It's really, really warm. And look how far down I actually have to dig before I start getting that dark color that I had on the other side. I'm actually down, 6 inches, and I'm still not nearly as dark and moist as on the other side. And you can see the leaf lettuce and stuff here. Everything on this end is wilting. The peppers here are wilting. Where again, on the other end, they look real strong. The leaves aren't drooping at all. So there's a big difference whether you're adding mulch here and how much it locks in the moisture versus the other side. And you can see where this shredded paper is right here. If you just had shredded paper with no mulch or any universal soil on top of it, this is dry enough now. If there was a big wind, this could blow away. But the universal soil just locks it all in really well. So it's like a two-step mulch. First you lay down your shredded paper and then lay some shredded mulch or some universal soil on top to make it look good. So that's it. Just the huge advantage to using mulch, and it's real simple to use shredded paper. It works really well. And as you can tell here, it actually looks really nice too, as long as you add something on top of it to like kind of camouflage it. So that's all for today, folks. This is Tom from VermiBag. Till next time, ciao.